Hello gremlins! I'm going to be painting some more clothing today, or should I say repainting, as this is the first ever item of clothing I painted, and I'm going to be transferring this design to a different jacket. You see, I'm really happy with this design, absolutely love it, it came out great, especially given that this was the first time I was ever painting fabric on purpose. However, I don't love the jacket that it's on. First of all, I didn't account for the fact that the hood, when down, completely covers the design. So I have to wear this with the hood up in order to show the design off, and I don't really love wearing the hood of this particular jacket. It is too tight around my head. Also, the sleeves are pretty tight, which means I can't layer the jacket over long sleeves, which is how I prefer to be able to wear hoodies and jackets. So despite how much I love the design, I don't end up wearing this all that often. In fact, I've barely ever worn it since I've made it, which is a shame because this is such a cool design and I'm so happy with it. So, I'm going to be remaking this design, but on this jacket. This is a plain black hoodie that I thrifted a couple months ago, specifically for this purpose. I've been wearing it around since then, and I've found it very comfortable. The hood is a lot looser around my head, the sleeves obviously fit nicer, and I can layer it over things. It's also a warmer jacket, so I can wear it in colder weather. So my plan for today is to transfer this design onto the new jacket and paint it, and bring you along with me on the process. I hope you enjoy! The video of my process sketching this design onto the jacket doesn't look great. For some reason the autofocus was going wild and the lighting was also bad. I filmed this at night. I hope you're able to look past the quality of the imagery. Like I always do when sketching on fabric, I used a damp watercolor pencil, which means any sketch lines still visible outside the design when I'm done can be erased with a damp cloth. I'm only using my original hoodie as my reference image while drawing the goat skull, but later when painting I changed quite a few anatomy details to create a more accurate skull. This design started as a digital art piece which I then turned into the hoodie, so it's several steps away from my original goat skull reference image. The main inaccuracy is the eyes, which are on top of the skull right now, but don't worry, I fixed that in the painting stage. After I finished the sketch, I quickly tried on the hoodie to make sure the design would be visible with the hood down, which it was, so I avoided the major problem my first hoodie had. I've finished my sketch. It needs some adjustments since I did it wrong, but I have finished it, and I've now set up to start painting. I finished the sketch a few days ago, but I've just been too busy. But now I've got my full setup, which I'm going to show you now, and then I'll get into the painting. So my setup is interesting. I'm basically working under my desk, because I'm going to, once I've finished filming this, put my phone like here, filming down. So I'm working half under my desk, half not. I've got a mat down on the floor to protect the carpet, and here's the sketch. I'll need to be careful to make sure I follow the right lines, because I've done a few resketches and I didn't bother washing off any of the lines before, so I just need to be careful not to accidentally paint the wrong thing. But I should be fine. Then I've got my paints there, and more paint mats for where I'm mixing my colors and everything. I have my reference of the previous jacket, and I've also, on my computer screen, got my reference. This is the original image that inspired this entire project when I first did the project several years ago. Plus I've got reference images of just regular goat skulls. And then I've also got a separate tab on which I'm going to have a music playlist to listen to while I work. I'm starting my painting process by covering the entire silhouette of the goat skull in a layer of white paint mixed with fabric medium. This will give me a base layer to work off when I start adding shading and eventually color details. Painting with pale colors on black fabric always leads to a lot of layers of paint being needed, especially with my current tube of white paint, which isn't as opaque as I'd like it to be. I've started filling in the skull with white on the horns, making the edges of the horns textured with the ridge things that appear on goat horns. I'm not sure what those are called, and googling what are horn grooves called did not give me answers. This graphic is a goat skull with large curved horns. On one horn there are vines twisted around the horn and a glowing green iris inside the dark eye socket. On the other side, the goat skull is cracked, its eyes glowing red and its horn is dripping blood. I first drew this design when I was bored in class, I think I was 17 at the time, as something to keep my hands busy. I was in a bit of a memento mori phase at the time and had just started to rediscover my interest in bones, both animal and human. Here's the original illustration as I finish up this white layer of paint. Oh dear. Well, I was going to try and film an update from under here so I didn't have to move the phone and would stay in alignment the entire process. But the process of me attempting to plug my headphones into the phone so that I can use the headphone mic moved my phone. So, moot point. But I'm still gonna record from down here. I don't know why, but I will. I've painted the first layer. The white is a lot more transparent than I thought because I mixed in too much fabric medium, but I think it should still provide a decent enough base to work on. Now I need to wait for this to fully dry, which may take a while, and then I'll be able to start adding detail and shading and, all that fun stuff. I was really proud of this illustration, and I showed it off to my friends and family. One friend in particular loved it, and gave me a suggestion that may have changed the trajectory of my life. He told me that it would look really cool on the back of a hoodie or jacket, and I was so excited by that idea. I wasn't able to do anything until the end of the school year, but that summer I bought the first black hoodie I found in a thrift store, and my first bottle of fabric medium, and I painted a Memento Mori, Memento Vivre goat skull in my grandparents' stuffy garage. I fell in love with the process. Painting clothing was so much fun, and wearing my own art was even more amazing. By the end of the summer, I'd painted another item of clothing, a circle skirt with mushrooms around the hem, which I also intend to remake sometime soonish when I have some better quality fabric. Throughout the next year, every plain t-shirt I owned got painted, with moons, mushrooms, and frogs. A few people told me I should try and sell the shirts like the ones I was making for myself, and when I finished high school, I set up an Etsy store and gave that a go. If you want to see what I have to offer, the link to that Etsy store is in the description. I also just keep making hand-painted clothing for myself, and I'm getting better and better. Half my wardrobe is customized, and I love it. So thank you so much, Bearded Gremlin, for telling me that this weird goat skull art would look really good on the back of a hoodie. The autofocus on my camera is having a hard time with this process, and it is entirely my fault. On a whim the other day, I attached a little fake plant to the top of my headphones to be a bit whimsical when I listen to YouTube videos and music. I completely forgot it was there, and it keeps taking the camera focus whenever my head is in frame. Besides that, though, the painting process is going well. Shading the horns takes forever. I'm shading each groove individually with white and light grey paint on the outside, light grey and dark grey on the inside. This black fabric is also soaking up my paint, especially the white, and I keep having to go back and add more layers to make the horns look bright enough. At one point, I just added a layer of diluted white paint to the entire outside of the horns to try and lighten them. Before leaving this all to dry, I added a quick layer of white to the main skull to work on later, and then I took a break. Okay, I've been working on this for a few hours now. The horns take a long time to make. I remember that from the first time, but I forgot it, and I relearned it all over again, especially since white really takes quite a few layers to show up on black fabric. But the horns are, I think, done. I might, add a few more details or touch-ups to them, but I think they're done other than, adding vines on this side and dripping blood on this side, but that will come after I've finished all the bone. Then the main skull, I added a second layer of white because the first layer of white I added just wasn't opaque enough, and now I'm going to let that dry and go eat lunch because it is nearly 2 p.m., and I have had nothing but, some banana bread at breakfast time. So I need to eat food and take a break and wait for that to dry, and then I'll come back and start shading the skull. I started the process of shading the skull by marking out where all the separate sections are and filling them all in with some more white paint. I outlined the eye sockets, this time making sure that they're on the sides of the head, and this goat won't look like a submerged predator. I also outlined where all the different facets of the skull are, and which ones are hit with the light versus in the shadow. The anatomy of the skull is definitely the weak point of the original hoodie graphic, and I'm doing my best to rectify all that. I started with flat colors, white on the main skull and grey around the nose, snout? Mouth? Where the shadows are. I then started adding some simple shading. The skull is lit from the left, the side where the plants are growing. The right side, the side that will be cracked and bloody, is the side in shadow. It isn't subtle at all. This skull is supposed to represent life and death, mori et vivre. One side regrowing, one side decaying. I definitely think the skull looks way better now than the previous version ever did. With the base goat skull dry, I began to add all the details from my illustration. First, I added some dark cracks to the shadowed side of the skull, mostly concentrated around the eye socket, but also along the side of the face. Then I began to mix up a couple shades of green for the overgrown half of the skull. Before I started on the vines, I quickly added some subtle green to the left eye socket to add some glow. I'll keep adding more layers of this bright green to that eye until it looks like a glowing ring of green in the darkness. My original vine was one long strand with no forks and simple round leaves. The original leaves, the ones in the digital illustration, were drawn with the symbol stamp tool. They're just Adobe Illustrator's default leaf stamp. This new vine branches and forks several times, curling around the horn and dangling down off it. I also made the leaves slightly more interesting by giving them a three-pointed ivy-like shape. I had to go over the leaves with my dark green paint a few times, especially the leaves directly on the black fabric, to keep them noticeable. Once again, I've stuck my head right between the camera and the artwork as I leaned over to paint the detail. The dead side of the skull is a lot simpler and quicker to paint than the alive side. All I added was some bright red blood drips that appear to be seeping from the ridges of the horn. I also added a red glow to the other eye socket, giving it a red glowing iris to contrast the green one on the other side. So I'm done the painting at least. I need to let this dry overnight, and then tomorrow morning I can rinse out my sketch lines and then iron it, and then it'll be done. I'm not used to talking to the camera like this, in the middle of the process, but I'm enjoying this. I hope you're also enjoying this new style video. I feel like it's more interactive. I'm super happy with how it's come. I'm super happy with how it's come out. I'd made just a few improvements to my original design, fixed the eye positions because my original design was not very skull accurate, made the vines a bit more interesting looking, and I think it's looking really, really good. And I can't wait to try it on and show you all tomorrow. So it's not the next morning, but I did just come to the realization that on my previous version of this design, I had moss growing on the alive side of the skull, and I forgot to do that. So I'm just popping in here to explain why I'm suddenly painting a bit more after having already said I was done. I'm just going to be adding some dabs of moss. It's done! It's done and complete, and I love it! Also, I'm not a makeup artist, but I did match my makeup look to the design as best I can. I'm gonna go put this on now. I'm so excited with how it's turned out. So obviously, it's a bit hard to like show off the design and also talk to the camera at the same time, but here are some clips of me, and I'll also just try and turn around so you can see it. As you can see, it's a lot more visible even when the hood's down, as my previous version of this. And I can wear the hood up as well, because this is an actually comfortable hood. So yeah, I'm super happy with how this came out. I hope you enjoyed as well. I definitely enjoy remaking my old clothing designs, because, like, the ideas were there, but I hadn't had enough practice to fully execute them properly. And so being able to come back and execute them better on clothing that fits more comfortably, even if it's far too hot at the moment to actually be wearing this hoodie, but in theory it fits more comfortably. To be able to remake these ideas that I had like 2-3 years ago, it's so much fun. I love revisiting my old stuff and just improving it. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you enjoy hand-painted clothing like this, not this design exactly, but on t-shirts, and also many of them do involve bones and overgrowth and other themes because I really enjoy painting it, you should check out my Etsy. It's linked down in the description. I've got a variety of t-shirts of different sizes. All of the t-shirts are thrifted, and I painted them all with, some of them have unique designs and some of them have repeating designs. You should totally go check those out if you like this kind of art. It really helps me and supports me. Thank you for watching, and until next time, bye!